both to and fro, a clap of thunder, bam! And some really gusty wind. Everyone agrees it's a pretty dramatic evening all round. Pan right, it's a hospital room. A clammy, pregnant woman lies spread eagled on the bed, about to produce pitter-patter of her own. She's not going to wet herself, although that's often a distressing side effect of childbirth. I'm referring to the pitter-patter of children's feet. Stand back, says the midwife. Her contraptions are massive. Get ready. Looks like Anthony Eden's about to be named Prime Minister, mutters a nurse as she strolls past the door. And Chelsea are about to win the First Division title, replies an orderly, although certainly not educated enough to follow politics. In the corner of the room, Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley blasts from the radio quietly. You see, this wasn't now, it's then. The present tense used in this passage is just a literary device, so that this next bit comes as a surprise. The scene is actually unfurling in 1955. The hospital, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in King's Lynn. The sweaty woman, Mrs. Dorothy Partridge, my mother. The child's head slithering from her legs. It belongs to me. The child is I, Partridge. You've done it! Brilliant pushing, says the midwife. She holds the newborn aloft, like a captain lifting a fleshy World Cup. And the child throws his head back and roars the roar of freedom. The noise is relatively nonsensical, but no less intelligent than most babies will produce. In fact, probably a bit more switched on than average. In many ways, the proud wail that burst from my lungs was my first broadcast. Delivered to an audience of no more than 8, that still equated to an audience share in the delivery room at least of a cool 100%. Not bad, I probably thought. Not bad at all. The next extract is from when I studied at East Anglia Polytechnic in 1974. Great days, great days. 1974 was a crazy, hazy time for Alan Partridge. The 60s had come to East Anglia, and it was a time, of free thinking, free love, and in my case, free university accommodation. I was quite the man about Norwich, striding confidently through the dreaming spires and hallowed halls of East Anglia Polytechnic, whose alumni included newswoman Selina Scott and meteorology whiz Penny Tranter, and soaking up all the knowledge that this seat of learning had to offer. The free accommodation? Well, enigmatically, I decided not to stay in the woodworm-infested squalor of university halls, but to commute in from my home, my parents' home. Although misinterpreted by some of my peers as reluctance to cut the apron strings and live independently, the decision to reside at home was a canny marshalling of my resources. It enabled me to avoid the scruffiness of my shaggy-haired, sandal-wearing colleagues. By using my rent money wisely, I was never less than beautifully shod. Of course, it also meant that I was something of a mystery man on campus. While my fellow students lived in each other's pockets and played out their debauched lifestyles for all to see, I was far less well known. I'd be glimpsed at the back of the lecture halls, ghosting through the student union with a glass of cider, or shushing idiots in the library. And then I'd be gone. This all added to my aura, as did my idiosyncratic dress sense. Thick knit zip-up cardigans, flared brown corduroys and shiny black pepper-pot brogues set me apart from the long-haired layabouts who bore an uncanny resemblance to the Guildford Four, some of the Birmingham Six. Irish long-haired layabouts wrongfully convicted of bombing England. It was a time of sex, drums and rock and roll. Now these three things, or four, depending on whether you count rock and roll as one item or two, provided the backdrop to a very crazy time. I know for a fact that I would have developed a pretty impressive booze habit and had full sex. And it not been for the fact that I was expected home for 6 to 6:30. You'll notice I said full sex. Oh, I dabbled all right. Gentlemanliness prevents me from recounting some of the early incidents involving my nascent but powerful sexuality. But suffice to say, I was no frigid. I did quite a lot of kissing. Some of it vigorous enough to chap lips. Mine and hers. On other occasions, I enjoyed erotic and informative afternoons with a student whose essays I was writing. Years ago, I'd have been too prudish to discuss these sexual experiences in print, but hitting 50 has given me a newfound candidness. I'm happy to recall those eye-opening afternoons with me and Jemima sitting bollock naked on her bed. Me exploring her body with my quivering hands, while she coquettishly feigned indifference by reading album sleeves or smoking. many may have been, but I was confident enough to speak my mind. This strutting young cock-certain Allen would often dish out compliments as he perused and felt her body. "You're a really busty woman, Jem," I once said, "one of the bustiest on campus." "Thanks," she said through her cigarette. "You've got quite a long torso, but your legs aren't in the least bit thick. Believe me, if I didn't have lectures, I'd love to kiss your back from top to bottom and from side to side, also diagonally." The next passage is from a very difficult period of my life, when I broke up with my wife, Carol. I found out she'd been having an affair. I kept a diary at the time, and I'll read one of the extracts. December the 21st, 1995. Had a long chat with Bill Oddie, an experienced birder. He lent me his binoculars and has given me some advice on how to remain still for long periods of time and go completely undetected in undergrowth and shrubbery. It's surprising how many of these techniques can be used to track an enemy or errant spouse. Then I discovered she was having an affair with a fitness instructor. Yes, it seems the French-smelling sex provider was Carol's fitness instructor. Far from being French, he was actually from Luton. His only Frenchness was his cowardly duplicitousness and the kissing he did with my wife. I was waiting for Carol when she got back from the gym that evening. She breezed into the kitchen as I sat at the kitchen table with a bottle of wine. I hadn't drunk from it or opened it. Drinking during the day makes me nauseous, but I think the effect worked. "Been enjoying yourself," I said, with loads of emphasis, so it's clear that enjoying might have a double meaning. "Mm-hmm," she said, like she didn't have a bloody clue. "Have a nice time at the gym," I said, making inverted commas around the word gym with my fingers. "Yes," she said. Her knowledge of my punctuation was pitiful. "Have a good workout," I said, slotting my right forefinger in and out of a hole I'd made between the thumbs. "Yes," she said, not a flicker. Who doesn't understand the finger sex mind? I lost it, throwing my empty wine glass crashing to the floor, but it landed in the carpet of the hall in one piece. "Careful," she said, suddenly irritated. "You nearly broke that." "What, like you broke my heart?" Silence. I was particularly pleased with this line because it's the sort of thing I usually think of long, long afterwards. I punished myself for not having done it at the time. "I know, Carol, I know." But then she turned to face me and looked so sad I started to cry on her behalf. And then on my behalf, and then I didn't know on whose behalf I was crying. I was making a right mess. I had a cold at the time, so it was like a nuchal tsunami. She picked up the wine glass and handed it to me so I could have another go, and this time it clattered onto the lino where the stem snapped. Still not the smithereen effect I wanted, but better than before. "Thanks," she said. Then she led me out to the garden and explained she'd been having an affair with her gym instructor. I asked all the obvious questions. Since when? Why him? How can you be attracted to a man who basically wears leotards? She told me all about it. Eventually, after lots of crying, me, shouting, me, and sighing, both, we went back inside. We realised that the next-door neighbours were having a pre-Christmas drink and could hear everything. "Enjoying this, are you?" I shouted through the hedge. "You like a bit of grief with your mulled wine?" I thought afterwards. I explained to Carol that I'd forgive her. We'd try again in the morning. Perhaps we could go and talk to Sue Cook about it. And she was shaking her head. I began frantically pitching shows at her, desperately outlining my portfolio of programme ideas in the hope of convincing her that we could be happy and rich. But she just kept shaking her head. The doorbell went. Bill Oddie was standing there. I opened the door to him and was just saying, "This isn't a good time, Bill," when we saw Carol. He could see I'd been crying and was clearly doing the mental maths. No one spoke for a while, then Carol gathered up her things, brushed past us, and headed back to the micro. She turned the ignition on, and a blast of The Winner Takes It All came from the speakers. I began to cry, but she looked at me through the windscreen and reversed very proficiently onto the road. We watched her go until she disappeared round the corner, at which point we stopped watching. I noticed Oddie was just standing there. "Not a good time, Bill." "Yeah, I know," he said. "I just wanted my binoculars back." Right, well, that's all we've got to read anymore. You'll have to buy the book, obviously. This lectern is now going to be removed. I'm going to put on a surgical glove to shake hands with people. I don't take it personally. It's just that if I did catch the disease, I'd never be able to track down the person who gave it to me. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to sit on a chair here. Someone's going to bring me a Diet Coke quite quickly.